until further notice. It does not say exactly how the U.S. is going to enforce this. What we have seen, but perhaps most famously in the case of the closure of the airspace over Iraq in the from the 1980s on until the wars that began in 2003, was that the U.S. military was charged with patrolling the airspace around the Iraqi borders in order to prevent any air traffic from crossing or going in and out of that country. We do not know if that is going to be the case here with the United States. It had been reported on Friday by the New York Times that late in the week of November 21st, a little more than a week ago, the U.S. president apparently had an unreported phone call with Nicolas Maduro, the Venezuelan president, where it's...
Yeah, he said Trump and Maduro discussed Venezuela's demands for a general amnesty for Maduro, his senior aides, and their families. Trump told Maduro that if he didn't leave willingly, the U.S. would consider other options, including use of force. I can't wait for the liberals and Republicans alike to say that, oh, it's actually better to forcibly take out Maduro, or it's actually better that our peace president was able to successfully intimidate Maduro into submission and install a puppet leader in Venezuela so that we can just take over their natural oil reserve. There is no such thing as like leave voluntarily or we will bomb you. What is the fucking voluntary function there? Leave voluntarily or we'll destroy your entire country. It's not exactly, that's not really, there's no real options there, you know? That's just, we're going to bomb the shit out of your country. And of course, the very same losers that wrote extensively on regime change in Iraq, regime change in Iran, are now advocating for regime change in Venezuela. Shouts out to Bret Stephens of the New York Times. Now, you might be wondering, how did Bret Stephens get this wrong every single time? And how does he still have a job? It's because of this willingness to demand more American imperialism. That is the reason why he has a job at the New York Times to begin with. These are not, these statements are not seen as failures in analysis, but instead propaganda, necessary propaganda from the Gray Lady, the paper of record, the New York Times. He's just doing his fucking job. Can you check the comments? U.S. military intervention is a horrible idea. I'm not really sure what kind of military action Brett is envisioning. Airstrikes, that won't work and could cause a rally around the flag effect. Limited ground invasion of Caracas and its immediate environs. This isn't Panama City. Too big and a result of very risky for U.S. soldiers. Full-scale invasion, not with 15,000 troops. Democracy and relief from long suffering endured by the Venezuelan people will not be brought about by another regime change nation-building operation with deployment of our troops from U.S. Southern Command, stationed in Doral, a.k.a. Doralzuela, based on elite exiles, the first wave established their faithful Trump voters. This is not Trump instigated, but Secretary of State Marco Rubio's plan to go into Venezuela first. Trump is a deal maker. He believes in escalation to negotiate. Indeed, diplomacy is the most viable way to make changes with a concomitant lift of sanctions that affect the poor. Rubio is friend and ally to Nobel winner Maria Machado, who has demonstrated through her actions to be all in for violence and right-wing rule, exhibited in the 2002 coup attempt against Chavez. Her signing Carmona decree that would dissolve Congress, constitution, violent protests where right-wing killed civilians in 2014 and 2017, and now rallies in Madrid for Trump-style sweep of Europe. She's openly aligned with Bolsonaro, Milei, Netanyahu. America first. Make it a reality, not a cover-up to promote the spread of fascism. Use our taxpayer money to fix the problems at home first, not abroad. We need regime change here, perhaps. So who's trying to get richer off this one? The usual suspects, no doubt. Let's just drop the pretense. In the last several decades of American wars are not for noble reasons at all and drain more of our taxpayer dollars with nothing to return but death. These are the New York Times liberals, like New York Times liberals, who also fucking despise Maduro and would love to see an exchange of leadership in Venezuela. And yet, even they're not biting on it. Let me get this straight. No money for healthcare, food, or the American taxpayer, but unlimited money for more endless and pointless wars. No thanks. I'm telling you right now, this is precisely the reason why any fucking Democrat that makes a big fuss about this is going to do LeBron numbers. And yet the Democrats are also a part of this uniparty because American foreign policy is uniparty, just like private healthcare is uniparty. There is bipartisan consensus on capitalism. There's bipartisan consensus on imperialism. Okay? This does not need to happen. And I'm not speaking to the politicians when I say this. I'm speaking to you, the average American person, the average American voter, when I'm speaking to you about this. Okay? This does not have to be the case. People need to make a bigger fuss about this. People need to force their politicians to make a bigger fuss about this. AOC needs to be out and about, getting ahead of this movement, being a leader in this movement, if she has ambitions of higher office, for example. Kudos for Brett Stephen for objective evaluation of the ground realities emerging from the recent announcement. Oh my God. If you keep advocating for the overthrow of governments you don't like, maybe one day you will get one right. Number one, are we not done overthrowing strongmen when we do not have a plan for the power vacuum that follows? See Iraq, Libya. Number two, it's their country, none of our business. This was such a foolish and childlike analysis in this column. Open Presence with 100 gifted subs. Thank you, Open Presence. The Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you, the viewers, for you, the viewers. Open Presence with another 25 gifted subs earlier as well. 125 today. The Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you, the viewers, for you, the viewers. Your voluntary contributions in the form of subscriptions is the only way you can support the Piker Broadcasting Service. We run no ad on the Piker Broadcasting Service. Yeah, the Powell Doctrine still stands. The case for Venezuelan intervention, privatized Social Security, 20% VAT, privatized Social Security like Australia, dual mandate hog. The middle class should pay more tax. God, I love the extreme liberalism. This is like a radical liberal right here. The case for Venezuelan intervention is much stronger than the case for invading Iraq. I'm sure at the time of Iraq, if this person was, an adult, they would have said identical things. Oh, the case for intervention in Iraq is much stronger than the case for intervention in Afghanistan or the case for intervention in Vietnam, right? Do you think the citizens of Europe will condemn this as the illegal war like we did with Ukraine? Fuck no. Just like citizens of Europe might, maybe not to the same degree, but make no mistake. Just like when Israel started as genocide or accelerated as genocide after October 7, and it took 2 fucking years for Europe to ever make a fuss about it at all. And even then it was marginal. And very quickly they snapped back to their previous formation, like Germany immediately started sending weapons back to Israel as soon as this so-called ceasefire was implemented. They do not have any interest in ever criticizing America. They like America's imperialism. They even if they have an issue with American imperialism at any point, they will never make a big fuss about it. Don't be crazy. They do not give a shit, okay? Anyway, let's continue.
According to those who were sourcing the story, the two men were talking about perhaps having a face-to-face meeting here in the United States and were perhaps discussing ways to try to reduce tensions between the two countries. The U.S., as our viewers know, has been very angry with Venezuela. It blames Venezuela not just for fueling what the U.S. calls an unprecedented migration crisis, but also by fueling the fentanyl addiction crisis here in the United States by efforting the trafficking of that illegal substance into the U.S. territory and resulting in the addiction and deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans. The U.S. has also long been very unhappy with Nicolas Maduro being the president of Venezuela. The Biden administration had considered his reelection in 2024 to be illegal. The Trump administration has continued that posture and has strongly signaled that it would like to see Maduro removed from power.
So, Rosalind, what do we think this all means? I mean, and especially considering that over the past few weeks, there's been...
we want to tackle the fentanyl opioid overdose crisis in the United States of America, so we're just going to bomb a country that has nothing to do with it. This is cool.
An increase, I would say, in the number of military personnel in the region.
Well, it's probably not a good sign for the Venezuelan government, if I were to speculate. It is worth also pointing out that on Thursday and Friday, the U.S. Defense Secretary, or Secretary of War, as he likes to call himself, Pete Hegseth, was on board the USS Gerald R. Ford, which is the aircraft carrier that has been deployed to the Caribbean Sea in international waters, but not far from Venezuela. Part of that military show of force to perhaps intimidate the Venezuelan government from carrying out what the U.S. says are illegal criminal narcotics activities. But this is certainly part of that context. Does that mean that military action carried out by the United States is imminent? We can't say that, but certainly it's one more piece of circumstantial evidence that the U.S. is trying to put very overt, very blatant pressure on the Venezuelan government and not just use diplomatic language to try to change course in that country.
What kind of debate has all this sparked in the U.S.? Because, again, over the past few weeks, we know that the U.S. military has killed more than 80 people in boat strikes as part of what Donald Trump and his administration are describing as the anti-drug trafficking campaign.
Well, there hasn't been much in the way of public uproar, but there's been a lot of uproar on Capitol Hill. Congressional Democrats and a few Republicans are very disturbed by this campaign on trying to deal with drug trafficking that traditionally had been carried out as a law enforcement action, with the U.S. Coast Guard basically interdicting these vessels allegedly carrying narcotics and then arranging for the detention and then transfer to U.S. officials for prosecution, as opposed to carrying out these strikes without notice, without any legal authority on these vessels. And in recent days, you've seen more people, especially on Capitol Hill, but also in the legal community, raising very serious questions about whether the U.S. is carrying out war crimes by basically targeting people without any due diligence and basically acting as judge and jury rather than going through the long-established, decades-long process of arresting and then prosecuting people for criminal behavior.
Rosalind, stand by for just a moment, because as you were saying, the U.S. has been rapidly increasing its military presence in the Caribbean. Since August, more than 10,000 American soldiers.
Do you think China has any interest in intervention? I mean, ironically enough, a lot of these initiatives, or the domino theory by dismantling Venezuela and then kicking up a wave of destabilization through tens of millions of people displaced in Venezuela that will go to all these other Latin American countries, is directly done to extract all the oil with no regulatory control or no kickbacks to the fucking Venezuelan population whatsoever, but also to move South American countries away from aligning with China. Having said that, however, I don't think China will do anything about this. Who knows? Maybe they will, but I just don't see China doing anything about this regardless, because China notoriously does not engage in proxy wars with the United States of America, even if it's an ally or at least like a regional partner that would, that they would benefit greatly from aiding, or at least like leaning into. No, China does a lot internationally. It's just not their policy to intervene against America in these proxy wars. At most, they will offer some support to Russia. Russia is much more hands-on in terms of the direct intervention that they engage in, but Russia is also not China and has a lot less capacity to do so, especially because they're currently fucking waging war in Ukraine. Never did you forget Vietnam? I mean, are we really? You think China now resembles China in the Vietnam era? It's like saying, oh, what about Korea? Yeah, I'm talking about modern People's Republic of China, okay? The established hegemonic superpower. Not hegemonic, but like the established superpower challenging the hegemonic superpower of the United States of America.
Soldiers and fighter jets have been deployed near Venezuela. This is the largest deployment of U.S. forces in the region in decades. The U.S. Navy's largest aircraft carrier, the Gerald R. Ford, has arrived in the southern Caribbean, and this is the largest ship of its kind in the world.
You think South America would try to intervene? I feel like completely dominated Venezuelan oil reserve. You mean South Africa or like South America? Would try to intervene. None of these countries have the capacity to intervene against the United States of America. Don't be crazy. Saudi Arabia? No. At most, you'll see posturing against American imperialism from other Latin American countries, but I don't think they will actually. I don't think they'll actually militarily engage with American soldiers. I mean, that's crazy.
With its own air wing of more than 75 fighter jets, helicopters, and early warning aircraft. And a Navy destroyer carrying guided missiles, helicopters, and Marines has also arrived in Trinidad and Tobago near Venezuela's coast. Venezuela has put its armed forces on high alert, deploying thousands of troops and a reported 5,000 Russian-made missiles across the country to counter the buildup. And now, what we hear in the past 30 minutes or so is the U.S. President Donald Trump announcing the closure of the airspace above Venezuela. Rosalind, was this expected at all? And do we know why now?
It was not expected. We don't know why. We are trying to reach out to sources across the U.S. government to find out exactly what is happening. I should note that after he made that post about the U.S.'s closure of Venezuelan airspace, he has now posted about a completely unrelated topic, the ongoing issue of tariffs on goods being imported and sold into the United States. So we don't know if this is actual military action that is about to happen or whether this is one of the statements that the president is prone to make as he very actively and very publicly carries out his foreign policy. This is not a government that does things in quiet negotiations, in mini summits, in world capitals. This is a man who very much says what he believes ought to happen, and he goes right to the U.S. public and to the global public through his social media channel.
Okay, Rosalind, we'll let you go for now. Thank you so much for that reporting.
Trump doesn't have the political capital for an invasion, could easily destroy his admin and legacy. This is why I suspect pressure campaign, but they could just go all in. Yeah, but also he's a madman and desperate for deflection, and the people in his ear, the people that he trusts, the sycophants in his ear, like Marco Rubio, might be feeding him wrong information, saying, "Oh, Mr. President, they'll actually rally around you," just like they're telling him, like, "Oh, this is good for both oil and also for, stamping out drugs." I don't even know anymore. I don't know. I don't think these guys are making accurate calculations anyway. How is he going to sell pardoning Honduras narco trafficking former leader to his MAGA base? They don't give a shit about that. Honduras, many of them will never even hear about it. I mean, with the way that Donald Trump operates, though, I think the more likely scenario is like trying to get Venezuela to concede with limited airstrikes or something like that, which is horrible. I mean, it's horrifying to think of, but like a Iran style situation, so he can present himself as like the great deal maker, the great negotiator. 15,000 troops are I don't think enough to do a ground invasion of Caracas or Venezuela in general. So it kind of feels like it's more so an aggressive militant posture against Venezuela with the hopes that they can just thwart Maduro and install the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Machado as a puppet leader. Yeah, the three people that are pushing for it in the admin are Rubio, Miller, and Ratcliffe. They're the ones who are aggressively and very hawkishly trying to do regime change. To all airlines, pilots, drug dealers, and human traffickers, please consider the airspace above and surrounding Venezuela to be closed in its entirety. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. That's how he announced it. Yeah. Trump administration officials assert Venezuela's leader Nicolas Maduro sits atop a cartel network. He has insisted the country does not export drugs. Keg's Breath has no ideological interest in this beyond being a dick rider of Donald Trump and fulfilling whatever ambition that Donald Trump has here. This is an older story all the way back in September, by the way. The push by top aides to President Trump to remove Nicolas Maduro as the leader of Venezuela has intensified in recent days, with the administration officials discussing a broad campaign that would escalate military pressure to try to force him out. Anyway, so that's there is no serious opposition to this, which is expected, I guess. I'm so cynical about all this stuff and the lack of interest from liberals in general. It's very frustrating. But
from Washington, D.C., we'll speak to Al Jazeera's Latin America editor, Lucia Newman. Lucia, you're joining us from Santiago in Chile on the telephone. Can you tell us if you've seen any official reaction, first of all, from the Venezuelan government to this development?
Well, we had heard just yesterday from President Maduro saying that the United States was increasing its, what he called excuses and lies to try to justify an intervention in Venezuela. And that was before this announcement was made by President Trump. But I can say that the Trump administration has been systematically increasing the pressure on the Maduro government, while at the same time we have been hearing, or reading, I should say, about attempts by President Trump to have a phone conversation with Nicolas Maduro. This has not been confirmed, but it is being widely reported that this conversation did take place in order to have some kind of a face-to-face meeting. Again, this has not been confirmed, but so he's sort of going hot and cold. But what clearly this very week on Monday, he declared the so-called Cartel of the Soles, a narco-terrorist organization, which he says is led by Nicolas Maduro. And then the White House said that
Not even the New York Times is buying what Machado is selling. This is from 3 days ago. Opposition leader Maria Corina Machado faces criticism that she is exaggerating threats posed by Venezuela's leader to justify U.S. force to overthrow him. I have no doubt that Nicolas Maduro, Jorge Rodriguez, and many others are masterminds of a system that has rigged elections in many countries, including the U.S., Ms. Machado told Bloomberg News, referring to Venezuela's president and the head of its National Assembly. Yeah, not only are they actually shipping metric tons of fentanyl into the United States of America, they're also rigging the American elections. Mr. Trump followed over the weekend by amplifying unproven assertions that Venezuela interfered in the 2020 election. I hate how stupid American politics is, by the way, that you can just be like, Venezuela is doing white genocide in South Africa and also rigged the 2020 election. So big, beautiful President Donald Trump lost. And Donald Trump will be like, that's true. This is the truest thing that anyone has ever said. We have to destroy Caracas. Oh. Ms. Machado and other opposition leaders have also argued that Mr. Maduro simultaneously heads 2 different drug trafficking organizations threatening U.S. national security. The Trump administration has similarly sought to link Mr. Maduro to both groups. The Trump administration has designated those groups, Tren de Aragua and the Cartel de los Soles, as terrorist organizations. Trump officials have also claimed that the United States was in a state of armed conflict with narco-terrorist drug cartels to legitimize the strikes on 21 boats, which have killed at least 83 people since September. But the administration's own intelligence agencies, experts on Latin America's drug trade, and other Venezuelan opposition figures have rejected the idea that Mr. Maduro wields control over 2 groups or is weaponizing them against the United States. While experts agree that figures in the Venezuelan military have been involved in drug smuggling, some doubt these organizations are even transnational drug cartels. JCS chairman and Trump's top advisor, Dan Kane, is on a tour of the region right now. He started the task force base in Puerto Rico. He then met with the president of Trinidad and Tobago. Hexed is visiting the Dominican Republic today to strengthen security cooperation. Can this even be called manufacturing consent? It's too stupid. I think at this stage, because Americans are so invested in whatever the fuck's going on in their immediate lives that they don't even care about this shit, is my point. They will care if American troops are invading Venezuela militarily, or like on the ground, and then returning home in body bags. Okay, at that point, some people will start getting mad, but most people are against this. The overwhelming majority are against this, but it doesn't fucking matter. That's my point. Just like the overwhelming majority are against giving weapons or any money to Israel, and it doesn't matter. We are at a stage at this point where you don't even need to manufacture consent anymore because people have just completely checked out of the process. Yeah, you can just kind of do whatever the fuck you want if you're America, and even Americans are just not going to mount a significant opposition. I saw some TikTok comments making fun of Maduro. The U.S. military has him dancing for his life. Yeah, I know. That's the reality of the matter also is that, yes, Maduro is very weak and completely unable to stop a land invasion or any sort of fucking violence that America might bring about. So there is not really, it's just making the dumbest Americans feel strong, like a playground bully that identifies the most vulnerable, the weakest, to actively reassert their dominance over everybody else by dominating that person. That's what we're doing in Venezuela. People underestimate how popular he is in the countryside, especially. There will literally be a massive civil war if they do a coup. Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily matter to America, right? If there's a failed state there, that's still better. If there's a failed state in Venezuela, that's still with a tremendous civil war, that's still better than fucking having Maduro control Venezuela. That's not true. The Venezuelan military is one of the only things that's been funded since Chavez. This isn't Iraq. There isn't enough troops in the region. No, I'm saying that... let's say Maduro makes the calculation that it's better for Venezuelans not to just fucking die, okay, with airstrikes or whatever the fuck America is threatening to do, and he leaves the country. Then Machado is the one that is installed as a puppet state leader. This will be an incredibly far right government that is entirely invested in selling what remains of the natural resources of Venezuela to European and Western capital for pennies on the dollar, with none of those funds going back to redistributive policies. There will be a lot of anger and resentment from the remaining Chavistas. There will be a lot of anger and resentment towards this initiative, because at the end of the day, even if people hate Maduro, at least in my experience, from what I know with what the failed coup that took place in Turkey, and from everything that I've read about how the domestic population responds to direct Western intervention, people are going to be very frustrated with the Machado administration. She will have a hard time securing all of the national forces to thwart whatever kind of instability that happens, and the country will be permanently destabilized. So even if there are Venezuelans right now that are like, I don't fucking know anymore, I hate Maduro, maybe American intervention is good, I think they will change their minds when America is dropping bombs on their heads. Not the Venezuelans that live in America right now, even though the Venezuelans that are living in America right now are very thankful for Donald Trump for offering them TPS, but now they've very quickly learned that they were simply a pawn in a political game, because now they are identified as threats to the fucking state. Just like the American Venezuelans, like the Venezuelans living in America, very quickly realized that Trump is just going to sell them out on a moment's notice to push for whatever kind of reactionary white nativist anti-immigrant sentiment that he wants to foment. The Venezuelans that are living in Venezuela still, that hate Maduro, will very quickly realize that maybe American domination isn't a better overall. At least that's usually what happens when countries actually get invaded. I'll give you an example from the opposing side. There are were plenty of people living in eastern Ukraine that identified as ethnic Russians, that found themselves to be Russian, that were sympathetic to Russia, that did not actually mind identifying as Russian. A lot of those attitudes shifted after Russia invaded eastern Ukraine and blew up their fucking apartment complexes, killed their parents, killed their grandparents. All of a sudden, they were no longer as pro-Russia as they used to be. That's just kind of how it goes. So just remember that. Especially, like, even amongst people that identify as ethnically Russian, for example, they have a very different opinion once the invasion is actually implemented. People always have buyer's remorse. Things that they think that they want, they very quickly find out they do not want at all once those things are implemented, and it's implemented in a very violent way. Yeah. Maria Corina Machado, the far-right U.S.-backed Venezuelan coup leader who won the Nobel Peace Prize, promised a massive privatization if Trump can put her in power. She vowed to sell off $1.7 trillion of Venezuela's oil, gas, gold infrastructure to U.S. corporations. It's crazy that she's worse than Guaido. I don't even know how, but I feel like the Venezuelan opposition to Maduro has gotten way more overt. It's wild. Buyer's remorse for invasions is pretty high. Yeah, from the domestic population. Yeah. Machado met with IMF, oil and investment groups last month, and she went to the America Business Forum as well, and basically talked about an imminent invasion as a positive, and like sold it to American capitalists as like, this is going to be a fantastic business opportunity for you. These guys are not even hiding it anymore. It's like this is the type of shit that people like myself used to say, and then every liberal would turn around and go, isn't that a little conspiratorial, sweetie? Even with Juan Guaido, they used to say this shit. Liberals, whenever I said Guaido did not even take advantage of the legal limited time frame that he had to actually assert any sort of control over Venezuelan politics, because he spent every waking moment petitioning Israel and America to literally militarily invade Venezuela. Liberals at the time would turn around and say, oh, how dare you say that? Well, Maduro's really bad. He's really violent. He's eating babies or whatever the fuck, right? Now they're just openly saying it. They're saying the quiet part out loud. This is the type of shit that like leftists would This is the type of shit that leftists would say in their analysis, and then liberals and right-wingers would go, oh, why do you hate America? You're just making stuff up. You must be a conspiracy theorist. Meanwhile, because of the, I guess, enshittification of everything, even the manufacturing consent machine has enshittified, and they don't even have any sort of interest in hiding this kind of thing or taking a liberal stance, taking a more liberalized propaganda stance on why Venezuela must be invaded to like liberate the gay Venezuelans that Maduro is killing or some shit, you know?
And this is amazing, super exciting for me. We will open Venezuela for foreign investment. I am talking about a $1.7 trillion opportunity, not only in oil and gas, which is huge, and you know that the opportunities, because we will open all upstream, middle stream, downstream to all companies, but also in mining.
This will help the Venezuelans for sure. You don't understand. This is going to be so helpful to the Venezuelan population. You don't get it. Yeah. The Venezuelan population of Chevron, Exxon, Shell, British Petroleum. Those are the Venezuelan constituents that Machado thinks about.
In gold, in infrastructure, power. We have our grid right now has a...
Like, this is the type of shit that used to be discussed in cigar smoke filled rooms, okay? In back rooms. This is the wheeling and dealing that used to take place in secretive back rooms, okay? Not at the American Business Forum where Joker face ass Nobel Peace Prize winner is just straight up saying like, oh, please come. She's not even saying my people yearn for freedom at this point. She's literally saying my people yearn for privatization. I will sell it to you. I will give all of it to you. I will give you all the bounties of the natural resources of this wonderful country as long as you fucking murder a decent chunk of the population at my behest so you can install me as a puppet leader.
17 gigawatt opportunity of energy potential that needs to be rehabbed, certainly for technology and AI and tourism. You know, Venezuela has 2,800 kilometers of pristine Caribbean coastline ready to be developed. So this is going to be huge. We will bring rule of law. We will open markets. We will have security for...
This is like, this is unironically like the reason why America was invested in the Batista regime in Cuba, no matter how cruel or no matter how awful it was for the Cuban population. She's basically saying, we're going to do the exact same thing here. Please install me as a puppet leader. It is fucking crazy.
Foreign investment and a transparent, massive privatization program that is waiting for you.
U.S. government-funded Venezuelan coup leader Maria Corina Machado promises massive privatization and fire sale of $1.7 trillion of her country's assets at the America Business Forum in Miami, Florida. Donald Trump spoke after her at the same event. Isn't that fucking nuts? Are they maybe also interested in a future dispute with Guyana? I mean, that stuff is, that's just icing on the cake, right? So yeah, that's where we're at. And I'm sure Brett Stevens has a great take on this.
The anti-drug offensive that we have been seeing in the Caribbean, that this anti-drug offensive will begin on land. So that is certainly sending the message that they're...
I guess at this point, I will say this over and over again, but at this point, the only thing we can rely on is the sheer and utter incompetence of the administration, okay? The utter incompetence of this administration comprised entirely of loyalists with no understanding of how these things are supposed to be conducted will end up finding a way to fuck this up. So that's it. Because we cannot rely on a anti-imperialist, anti-war left flank here creating a major fuss about the peace president opening up a new front, right? That's not going to happen. Let's be fucking real. There are very few Democrats that have even said anything about this. And the top Democrats have only criticized the fact that Trump is not giving us enough information. We would be, willing to, we would be totally on board. We would be totally on board with the invasion of Venezuela if you just simply gave us all the information about what you're planning. Like, that's what they're pissed off about. So it's not happening, right? That shit's not happening. If you're relying on the Democrats here, good luck. However, the one thing that you can always bank on is that this administration is so fucking stupid and so fucking incompetent that they will find a way to ruin this, okay? They will mess this up.
Could be some kind of a military action within Venezuela itself.
So how much of an escalation is this, Lucia?
I'm sorry?
How much of
There
an
was another
escalation?
question?
How much of an escalation?
Well, it's an
is this?
it is an escalation on of words and on paper, but we haven't seen an actual escalation.
Thankfully, we are supporting those Democrats so they don't destroy our amazing agenda. The left flank is too busy supporting Jeffries. Yes, you're right. Zoran Mamdani is personally responsible for this. You are so correct, Chatter. Your eyes are on the prize here. You got it. Okay, you got it. You got it. Zoran is personally also excited at the prospect of bombing Venezuela, and he's doing it. And I think we should be yelling at Zoran in this moment. No, you're right. I'm glad that you've identified exactly who is at fault here. Okay, you're right, and you should continue doing that.
He would actually go so far, now I'm speaking about the Pentagon and the administration, whether they would actually attack Venezuela, which is the fear that is being raised, obviously, from everyone in the region. When you tell
I'm Venezuelan, and I don't like the idea of selling my country to the U.S., but what would actually be an actual way to fix the current situation? Maduro is an actual dictator. The last couple of elections have been clearly rigged, and the amount of misery in the country is facing is clearly something that is to be dealt with. I don't know how to argue against intervention to my right-wing family members. I mean, a big chunk of the fucking economic issues, aside from Maduro's incompetence, directly is because the United States of America has designed it openly. They've said that they wanted to make the Venezuelan economy scream, and they did with their sanctions regime. And it's the same exact dynamic that's taking place here, which is either you leave the country, Maduro, either you leave the country and allow us to install this puppet, okay, or we bomb you. And in prior to this newer development, it was either you leave the country, either you give up your power and allow the American government to install whatever puppet dictator that they want to, a puppet leadership that they want to, or we're going to continue destroying your economy. We're going to continue making it so that it's virtually impossible for you to feed the fucking nation. And it's always America putting their hand on the scales in this regard. But ultimately, the best possible thing you can do is point to Iraq, okay? That's it. Look at Iraq. Do you think Iraq is better off after American intervention, or is it not? Where do you think Maduro would flee to if he had to? Probably Turkey. I think that's what they were saying. He could, yeah. The thing is, the argument is always that speculation. But how is that speculation? Is it speculation when you look at Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria? Is it speculation, or is it just American policy? At that point, it's not speculation. It's just the evidence is all of the other instances where this has happened. This exact same thing has happened. Middle East is not the same. Venezuela is not Iraq. Venezuela is not Iraq. Middle East is not the same as America continent, bro. I don't know why you're saying this. I understand that, but like, what do you think? Like, in terms of American intervention, are you familiar with any sort of South American history or American intervention in Latin American countries? Like, what do you mean? We've been doing this for, I would say, longer than we've been doing this in the Middle East, actually. I don't even know what your position is here with what I'm saying. Do you think they will do another Iraq in the same continent? They will not. If you have, wait, what? Are you kidding me? I think America absolutely would do it. Yeah, why wouldn't they? We're fucking belligerent. What, you think America gives a shit about the tens of millions of people destabilized and removed to their homes, and then the flows and the migration patterns that will take place after that? Well, guess what? We're already designing a concentration camp initiative and a massive Gestapo force to basically rid the nation's boundaries of anyone that we've deemed to be non-American or not American enough. So whatever wave of migration that comes to the southern border after this destabilization, they will deal with militarily. They'll set up fucking AI turrets on the border and start lasering people that come near the goddamn border. That is the direction that we are heading it towards. Why haven't they done it then? Wait, what? Why haven't they done it thus far? I mean, these things take time. And also, I'm saying that I don't know. I don't know if this will be implemented. I'm just saying that that is the direction that we're heading toward.
That when you tell airlines not to go to Venezuela, when you say that the airspace is now being closed, you're sending a very, very aggressive message. Whether this will play out.
Your chat is full of LATAM expat hogs living in America who want to consent to imperialism. I mean, sure, I kind of understand that mentality, except many of them and their positions on U.S. soil is now in serious contention, right? Because if you are a Venezuelan who suffered due to the sanctions or due to like whatever your parents' political position was, under the Maduro administration or under Chavez or whatever the fuck, and you escaped to America, right? And America was like, oh yeah, we'll give you citizenship. You have to recognize now, especially that like America is not exactly a safe haven for you, right? Like no matter how hard you dick ride America, America seemingly wants you to hop off that dick. America seemingly wants to purge you of its national boundaries. They're very open about it. They're like, Venezuela in this last election cycle became the #1 ops for the Trump administration. Venezuela must be freed by America. Yeah, exactly. Just like Iraq. I'm one of the 40 leftist Mexicans that watch this. So no matter how hard you tried, no matter how much you thought, oh yeah, we're just like the Cubans. We're just like the Cuban Americans. Like we are, advocating for Yankee soldiers to come and destroy Venezuela in an effort to destabilize the nation, install a puppet leadership so I can just like go back and forth between Venezuela. It'll be wonderful. There is no example of that actually taking place and being a successful becoming successful at all, especially in Latin America.
Matter altogether. But this has been going on now for a long, long time, and it's unclear whether the administration is willing to actually go into Venezuela or not, but it is supposed to put very, very strong pressure on Maduro.
I'm a Venezuelan who had to return after TPS was ended, and I have people here telling me Trump loves and wants what's best for Venezuela. People here are brain broken. What do you say? What do you say? There's fucking hogs everywhere, including in Venezuela. There's hogs in America. There's hogs everywhere. There's always gonna be people that go, no, this is awesome. We will welcome them as liberators. Of course, their attitude will shift very quickly once the bombs start fucking flying. But, why do you think this invasion will be so special? Wait, this person is unironically saying it's good. As soon as they kill Maduro? Wait, you think that... Oh, chatter. I thought this person was saying like, no, Venezuela is not Iraq. Like, America wouldn't dare try to bomb Venezuela. It turns out he was just saying... No, Venezuela's not Iraq. This time it'll be fine. Yeah, blowback season 8 incoming. There's always a guy that has this mentality. Hey guys, I know that American imperialism is a litany of failures, right? And has led to significant amounts of blowback and hatred and animosity and destabilization that is horrible for every region that we've decided to implement a grand design over, but this time it'll be different. All those previous wars were bad, but this time, let me tell you why it's good, okay? Let me tell you why it's good.
Maduro perhaps, and this is the speculation, perhaps to sit down and negotiate his withdrawal from power.
And up until this point, any sign that this pressure that the U.S. government has been trying to put on Venezuela has worked?
None whatsoever, none that we can certainly measure. They've said that they will not cave in to this kind of pressure.
This war will destabilize the entire Middle Eastern region and set off a global shockwave of anti-Americanism versus no, it won't. Published in March 26, 2003 on The Onion. Okay? George W. Bush may think that a war against Iraq is the solution to our problems, but the reality is it will only serve to create far more. This war will not put an end to anti-Americanism. It will fan the flames of hatred even higher. Counterpoint, no, it won't. It just won't. None of that will happen. You're getting worked up over nothing. Everything's going to be fine. So just relax, okay? You're really overreacting. This war will not put an end to anti-Americanism. It will fan the flames of hatred even higher. It won't. It will harden the resolve of Arab states to drive out all Western influence. Not really. A war against Iraq is not only morally wrong, it will be an unmitigated disaster. Sorry, no, I disagree. Give Bob Scheffer a column in the New York Times right now. Because ironically enough, at the time, The Onion was making fun of this fucking asshole and many others like this fucking asshole. And guess what? the same fucking asshole is still doing the same fucking article. It is crazy. I cannot believe it, dude. It's just, I just can't believe that there are still Americans out there who just look at the situation and go, yeah, but this time it'll be different, I think. What leads you to believe that this time it's going to be different? What leads you to believe that? Like, what leads you to even have any confidence whatsoever that the American government does stuff like this for you? Okay? When the last 20 years, the last 30 years have been nothing but pain and suffering and material conditions worsening for you, while America has done this all around the world over and over again. What leads you to believe that this is going to be any different? Donald Trump said Friday that he had sort of made up his mind about his plan for Venezuela, but he can't tell you what it would be with an aircraft carrier strike group and some 15,000 service personnel deployed to the region. It's sort of hard to imagine that the president's decision will be to stand down and go home. Okay? What is this? Why were you so sure about Russia not invading Ukraine, but now so sure that the U.S. does want to invade Venezuela? Do you consider Russia less imperialist than the U.S.? Brother, the very same reasons as to why I think it was a fucking spectacular failure and would cause unimaginable pain is the very same reason why I'm saying I hope America doesn't invade. I did not want Russia to invade Ukraine, just like I do not want America to invade Venezuela. Jesus Christ. I can't believe people still hold on to this fucking thing, especially when every other thing that I've said about Ukraine has literally happened. Whether it be the massive amounts of death and destruction that will befall both the Ukrainian side and the Russian side, the animosity, and also additional support for NATO in general, all of that came true. It was, in many respects, a gift to the Biden administration, especially in terms of like hardening their position and support for NATO. You got 2 new countries that are also a part of NATO now. And Donald Trump can just come in and say, yeah, 5% of your GDP should be spent on U.S. manufactured weapons, or at least your own domestic weapons manufacturing industries. I like that the NatSec NATO lovers refuse to entertain every single point that I've said where Ukraine has the maximum leverage now. They should actually immediately implement some sort of ceasefire negotiation. They have been consistently wrong since then, but they still always go back to, well, you said Russia would never invade Ukraine. You're fucking stupid. Yeah, my mistake for assuming that, foreign adversaries also behave in a rational manner. What about all the fucking, Ukraine is going to win and purge the Russian orcs from their fucking national boundaries any day now, guys? What happened? They've spent the last fucking 3 years saying that was going to happen, and it seems to have not happened. Why don't you go get mad at them for a little bit, for a change? Any day now. Manhattan Institute says, yeah, the irony is also, I think, like, it was a miscalculation, and that there is, people who cope on the pro-Russian side, or at least, like, on the campus side, will say, no, Putin never had an ambition to, like, take over Kyiv, right? And he actually just simply wanted Eastern Ukraine. That's cope. That's bullshit. Okay? I do believe that Putin was also misinformed and thought that it would be much simpler to overtake Ukraine. Maybe a little bit more difficult than taking over Crimea, just like marching over and just like militarily annexing Crimea. But it would be a successful military operation, a successful special military operation nonetheless. Maybe it wouldn't be 2 weeks, maybe it'd be a month. But it was very clear that Ukrainian defenses were far better than they had previously assumed, that they were not able to immediately implement air superiority over the entire country, for example. Okay? You may be shocked to hear this, but everyone in Venezuela I know is tired of waiting and wants U.S. military action as soon as possible to end Maduro once and for all. Their problem isn't the United States. They want America to intervene. The problem is 26 years of socialism. Thank you, Danielle DiMartino of the Manhattan Institute. Mr. Trump, my people yearn for bombs. I am, of course, in New York, but my friends in Caracas are demanding Tomahawk missiles take out their apartment complexes immediately. Thoughts from a friend in Venezuela wanting regime change. I really wish something would happen soon. I can't sleep from thinking about it, waiting for the moment, and I get frustrated that nothing happens quickly enough. And if there is change, the days will be incredibly difficult, but after the storm, there will eventually be calm. This is just one opinion, not suggesting 100% of Venezuelans feel the same. This guy's in his 20s, a student from a poor background. His family and neighborhood used to support Chavez and Maduro, but now barely any do. A couple of People in his extended family are still Maduro voters. If Trump heard that Maduro is bigger than Arnold Palmer, do you think he'd resolve this conflict with a bit of Kirk diplomacy? No. If you are wondering why anytime America's invested in like destabilizing a foreign country, a foreign adversary, the only voices that you hear are expats or people just like living in America that are demanding more and more bombing of said country. This is part of the reason why America actually brings a shit ton of people from said country that they want to destabilize. It's always the same, whether it be Cuba, whether it be Venezuela, whether it be Iran. My people yearn for freedom at the end of a American Tomahawk missile.
Reached out to their closest allies, that is Russia and China, for help, but both have been rather lukewarm and certainly have not come out publicly to say that they would stand up and by Venezuela's side, especially militarily, if there were to be increased military action around and inside of Venezuela.
Has Venezuela taken any sort of preparatory action in case this were to escalate? We know that the U.S. has amassed more than a dozen warships and thousands of...
Here we go. I very much appreciate and respect the determination by President Trump to deal with the drug caliphate countries that inhabit our backyard, chief among them Venezuela. For over a decade, Maduro has controlled a narco-terrorist state that is poisoning America, and he has created alliances with international terrorist organizations like Hezbollah. He is an illegitimate leader who has been indicted for drug trafficking in U.S. courts and maintains control of Venezuela by a reign of terror. Narco drug trafficking hub and a drug caliphate, an Islamic-style drug dealing situation happening in Venezuela. President Trump's strong commitment to end this madness in Venezuela will save countless of American lives and will give the beautiful people of Venezuela a new lease on life. I hear Turkey and Iran are lovely this time of year. Yeah, the socialist drug Sharia caliphate of Vuvuzeller.
Troops in the region, they're branding their operation as an Operation Southern Spear. That's what they're calling it. What has Venezuela done to prepare?
Venezuela has, from the very beginning, when this was not, when this was just a few U.S. boats and troops around the area shooting and destroying.
What does he mean by I hear Turkey and Iran are lovely this time of year? He's saying Maduro needs to immediately escape to Iran or Turkey in order to avoid a land invasion of Venezuela.
Boats that were allegedly carrying drugs in the area, it began to mobilize its army, began to mobilize ordinary people, teaching them how to be prepared for an invasion, that sort of thing, which we have seen in Venezuela over the decades. This is not new. The real question is Venezuela really in a position to defend itself, whether to be military action from the United States? I'm sure they would resist, but the strategy, according to people who are in the know, both there and abroad, is that this is to tell the Venezuelan military that they should now withdraw their support for Maduro and that there will be no sanctions taken against them if they do that. This is what we have been hearing now for at least a month. This is for them to desert, basically, Nicolás Maduro and the upper echelons of the military forces of Venezuela, so that there will be regime change. That seems to be really the end game.
Okay, thank you. Lucia, we'll let you go for now. Thank you so much for that reporting from Santiago in Chile.
The man accused of shooting 2 National Guard members in Washington, D.C. is now facing a first-degree murder charge.
Is this why she received the Peace Prize? Yes, as I told you at the time. The reason why she fucking received the Nobel Peace Prize is for this reason. Anyway, Brett Stevens says, I've been outspoken in calling the administration to act against Nicolas Maduro's dictatorship in Caracas. A column I wrote in January ran under the headline, Depose Maduro. With war looming, possibly within days, it's worth making the case again and thinking through the ways it could go wrong. Let's take it point by point. Is there a vital American interest at stake? There is, and it's not just the one the administration keeps talking about, drugs. Not that there's much doubt that the regime is deeply implicated in the drug trade. Yes, there is much doubt. What are you saying? The reason why it's a Wall Street Journal article that is annotated in this fucking op-ed and not the New York Times article is because the New York Times article openly and clearly states that there is no evidence that there is any sort of serious drug trafficking taking place within Venezuela. Okay? As someone who has written an op-ed for the New York Times, let me tell you, New York Times loves hyperlinks that go back to New York Times articles. It means that they can't actually hyperlink a New York Times article here, so they had to go with the fucking Wall Street Journal dish rag. Okay? Trust me. The most careful analysis I know of, a 2022 report by the Insight Crime think tank, knows that the principal role of the president and his henchmen is to ensure the drug trafficking systems functions. Yeah, this is fucking bullshit. Okay? It's bullshit. The drug argument is complete nonsense. The real argument is oil and and destabilization for the entire region, and also moving them forcibly because of this destabilization away from dealing with China directly. Okay? That's the real reason why they're doing this. That's the American national security interest here. It's oil, it's gold, it's all the fucking natural resources that Machado says she is going to sell at, bargain bin basement prices to Western capital in exchange for her sitting on the seat of power in Venezuela. And that's it. And also, not having any sort of positive relationships with China or Russia or any of America's foreign adversaries. Okay. But the larger challenge posed by Maduro's regime is that it's both an importer and exporter of stability. An importer because the regime's close economic strategic ties to China, Russia, and Iran. Why wouldn't they have close strategic ties to China, Russia, and Iran? America has never even attempted to have a decent relationship with any of these countries. What is this? What is this? Why aren't you answering my question? Are you on the Ukrainian front lines line now? What is this? What is this? What is this? What? Figured you would pivot? Why are you guys arguing amongst one another about Venezuela from the perspective of Russia and Ukraine? Genuinely asking here, what is the basis behind the whole drug propaganda? How is it markedly untrue? I think Trump wanted to tie it to like whatever he ran on during the election, but the Rose Cartel or whatever was like a fucking made up thing. I think like many decades prior to this, and they just unearthed that bullshit as a reason to claim that Venezuela and its like military and its leadership is engaged in drug trafficking. They think that it's a better way to argue to go to war with Venezuela, to claim that it's actually responsible for the fentanyl deaths in the United States of America. It's no different than claiming that Trendaragua is basically MS-13. It's bullshit. Is this just rage bait being on the New York Times, or are there genuine hog readers? No, the New York Times, or at least Brett Stevens' role in the New York Times is to specifically do this. Anytime America is like trying to invade another country, Brett Stevens and many other, intelligent right-wingers have to come out and say how good this is. Someone has to do the propaganda. Someone has to do the dirty work. And Brett Stevens has a long track record of doing exactly this dirty work for every single dirty war that America is engaged in. Like neocon, New York Times columnist Brett Stevens has been wrong pretty much about everything in his entire career. He obediently regurgitated CIA lies to justify every U.S. war of aggression against Iraq, Libya, Syria, and Iran. Now he's calling for the overthrowing of Venezuela's government in yet another U.S. imperial war based on lies. No amount of bloodshed will ever be enough for these neo-colonial warmongers. Their goal is to topple every last independent government until the U.S. empire controls the entire world. In other words, they want a global imperial dictatorship, which they ironically claim to be based on freedom and democracy. The case for overthrowing Maduro. 20 years on, I don't regret supporting the Iraq war, Brett Stevens says. The Syria opportunity. Israel had the courage to do what needed to be done. Yeah. Opinion, how to choke Iraq. Bomb North Korea before it's too late. Bomb Syria, even if it's illegal. Bombing Iraq isn't enough. By Bill Kristol. American bombs made Iraq stronger by Ronald Steele. To stop Iran's bomb Iran. John Bolton. Look at the many familiar names and faces. The connection between the Fort Bragg cartel and the Department of War. I mean, this is actually a good article. Yeah, Bill Kristol, ironically, is way more woke now than all of these other guys, which is the weird thing here. But yeah, old Bilbo Kristol. I just received information that Venezuela is days away from developing a nuke. Yeah. Anyway,